Continuing in the Likutei Moharan, Tar Aleph in Chelik Shini, Kinyan, Siman Tes. Shenigelas HaTefila as Nofel HaDoktorai. When we said that the Shefa of Nevuah comes, and unfortunately we don't have anyone that could take Nevuah, have Nevuah right now, so what we get instead, or what does come into the world, is a Shefa is Chashivas of Tefillah, is the importance of Tefillah. So that's, the Rebbe says this is the redemption of Tefillah. Tefillah now is, people are mezazel in Tefillah, and they make fun of it. They don't treat it with the proper cover. And when people have a proper fear, then we said the Shefa of Nevuah is going to come into the world. When the Shefa of Nevuah comes into the world, then that will give people the proper cover towards Tefillah. So then, no for doctor, all the medicine, all the doctors will fall. Because nobody will need to take medicine anymore. Because all of the refuahs are through different types of herbs, grasses, or possibly minerals, or other things like that. And every one of the herbs receive power from a certain type of star, a star that's appropriate to it. As the rabbi said in the Medrash, there is no grass, no blade of grass that doesn't have a specific kochav, a specific star or mazel that kiviyachol hits it and tells it to grow. Each one of these stars or constellations receive power from the level above it. And the level above it receives from even the level above that. Until all of these forces, all of these stars and other upper forces receive from the Sarim Halyonim, from the high Sarma, like ministers, the heavenly ministers. As it says, that each one of the stars are borrowing from the next, meaning each one of them are borrowing and receiving shefa from the level above it. Sihar Lavim and Shimsha, and the moon, for example, borrows from the sun. And the moon receives its power from the sun, and so too all the stars and all the constellations, up until the heavenly hosts of they receive one from the next. Each one, the lower level, receives from the level above it. Ki gavo ma'al gavo, and this goes from one step to the next till very, very high levels. V'hem kulam b'chinas lovin zeh mizeh. Lovin zeh mizeh v'zeh mizeh. And each one of these levels are like they're borrowing from the level above it. Until they receive and they're borrowing from the upper ministers, the heavenly ministers. And they also, the ministers, also receive from who is above them. Each one above, from on a level above it. Until all of these levels, all the level of the development of the Shefa, how it comes down to this world, all of them receive from the highest level. Meaning that the Sarim Elyonim also have to receive from those above it and those above it until they receive from the highest level, which is Shu Dvar Hashem, which is the word of Hashem. Everyone receives from this high, ultimately, we all are borrowing from the level above us. The level above us is borrowing from the level above that until we get to the highest level, which is Dvar Hashem, which is the word of Hashem Mamash. It says Mefurish in the Pasuk, it says, B'Dvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu, that the Shemayim, the skies were created through the words of Hashem. U'B'Ruach Piv Kol Tzvam, and through the breath of his mouth, all of the heavenly hosts. Also, I'm saying we see also in Bereshis, I don't know why the Rebbe doesn't bring this also, or why the Rebbe definitely brings this Pasuk, but in Bereshis it says, it says by Hior, it says there would be light, and then there was light. And he said that whatever he said, that's what actually happened at that moment. So therefore, when a person is zoche to tefillah, as we said, he's metakin the Shor Sheyira, and he builds Yerushalayim, the perfected Yira inside of his heart, then he's Zocher to Yira, and that brings a Shefa of Nevuah down to the world. So when he brings a Shefa into the Nevuah down to the world, he's also Zocher to Tefillah, because a lot of it, like we said many times, we don't have Nevuah now in this world. So we do have, instead of getting Nevuah, we would get with Tefillah. So when a person gets this Tefillah, in Tzrichim Refuah Sa'isav, a person no longer needs to receive the power of healing from the grasses, which, as we explained before, receive from the stars and the angels receive from the angels above it, from the stars above it, and the stars above it, up to the heavenly ministers, and heavenly ministers from the word of Hashem. We're going to see why a person no longer needs to receive from this low level, the last level on the food chain, so to speak, which is the grasses themselves. A person is going up to a much higher level. Why? Because tefillah is bechina of word of Hashem. Prayer itself, as we explained before, when Hashem puts the words into a person's mouth, and prayer, when a person davens to Hashem, he's holding on the madriga of Dvar Hashem when a person davens properly. Shushar Shakol, and we said Dvar Hashem is the source of all the shefa that comes into this world, from level to level, from all the upper ministers until the stars, and from the stars until the grasses. The source for all of this is Dvar Hashem. Zeh b'chinas Navi, and this is the b'china of Navi. Again, we said that Dvar Hashem is also b'china Navi, as we also said before. Now he's explaining it in a different way. That in the word of Hashem, the skies were created. So he was showing that through the power, the shefa of Nevuah, which we aren't able to receive as Nevuah, we are able to receive though as Tefillah. When we receive the shefa of Nevuah, of Tefillah, and we have the power of Tefillah, then we can already bring down the shefa, and we don't have to receive from the grasses, we're going to explain, and we're going to be attached to the source of the creation of the skies, of the heavens. It says, B'dvar Hashem, through the word of Hashem, which we said is Tefillah, Shamayim Nasu, Shamayim was created. Ki Aleph hu Rakia, Amavdi b'mayim l'mayim, and if you take the words Navi, you obviously won't find a shin there, and we said that's Rosh Tevis, B'dvar Hashem, Shamayim Nasu. So the Rebbe is explaining that the Aleph is is switched for a shin. Because Aleph hu Rakia, Mavdil ben Mayim l'mayim. The Aleph is Rakia, Mavdil ben Mayim l'mayim. And I think this is Rav Nosson here on the start. It says, Pirush, Al ken tevis shamayim hu b'makom Aleph. The word shamayim is in place of the letter Aleph. She b'teva novi, ki Aleph hi Rakia, kana. Because the Aleph is Rakia. So, we said B'dvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu, and the Rakia is the Aleph. So we said the Shamayim is the Aleph for the Rosh, to make the Rosh Tevis of Navi. So we have Nun, base in Yud, which is B'dvar Hashem and Nasu, and we have the Shamayim, which is the Rakia, which the Rebbe says is an Aleph. The Rebbe brings in Torah base, I think Torah Daled. It's Torah Daled in Chelik Rishon of the Kutimah. And why is the Aleph? What's the idea of Aleph being a separation between Mayim and Mayim? Is that there's a line in the middle, and there's two dots, one on the top, one on the bottom, and this represents the separation, which is the line in the middle. It's Mavdil ben Mayim l'mayim, the Mayim Elyon and Mayim Tachton, which is the Yud on the top of the Aleph and Yud on the bottom. Because an Aleph could be kind of made up of three letters: a Yud on the top, a Vav going in the middle, and then a Yud kind of upside down on the bottom. Because as we said before, that through the shefa of Nevuah, especially nowadays when we don't have the actual Nevuah, a person is zoche to Tefillah. Shehi b'chinas Dvar Hashem, which is the b'china of Dvar Hashem, as we mentioned above. B'zeh b'chinas yishlach devaro v'yipeim v'yimat mashchisosom. This is the b'china of Hashem sending His word. Hashem yishlach devaro, He will send His word. V'yipeim, and they will be healed. V'yimat mashchisosom, and the simple meaning for this is they will be saved from destruction or from from being destroyed. Yishlach dvarov v'yarkein, the Rebbe explains, hainu shemekablim koach harfuos ayidei dvar Hashem, meaning that they receive the power of refuah. They don't receive the grasses, but they receive the power of the refuah from the source of the power, and the source of the power is dvar Hashem. Dahainu tefillah. So they instead of going to receive the source of refuah from the lowest level on the chain, which is the grasses themselves, the person is going now to tefillah, which is the source of these powers, and he's attaching himself to dvar Hashem through tefillah. Tefillah is dvar Hashem. And now he'll be saved from destruction. And the Rebbe is going to explain that mashchisosam does not mean destruction, but it means also asavim. Hainu asavim b'chinas hakutzu l'shachas. He's bringing a drasha here that shachas is referring here in this Gemara in Gemara Menachos is referring to grass, a fresh type of grass. But it's interesting to note. Therefore, the Rebbe says that the person will not need to have a savin, he will not need grasses anymore. He will be able to go straight. He'll be saved from the grasses. Doesn't mean he'll be saved from being destroyed. He'll be saved from grasses. So it's interesting that the Rebbe here is comparing a savin here to mashkisosam, to something which I'm pretty sure that the parish of this word means is from the word of shachas as destruction. And mashkisosam is like their destructors, or the ones who destroy them. So it's very interesting. We know the Rebbe wasn't so excited about refuahs in general and taking medicine in general and going to doctors. So it's nice to see that he's comparing it here. He's showing the drasha how the destruction, these destructors are being another word for medicine. Destructors. Shachas, which is destruction. Okay. And this is the bechina of you should serve Hashem your God. And then Hashem will bless your bread and your water. And he will take away sickness from your midst. Now the Rebbe is going to explain this pasuk. And you should serve Hashem your God. Avoda zu tefillah. Avoda, serving Hashem, is tefillah. That's what the beginning of the pasuk. And then Hashem will bless your bread and your water. And then he will take away machla, he will take away sickness from your midst. Hainu. A person will get refuah instead of through grasses and through herbs. He will get his refuah through bread and water. How? Since his bread and water will now be able to be blessed through the source of everything. He's going to explain. Dahainu dvar Hashem, which is the word of Hashem, b'chinas tefillah. And bread and water will then have the power to heal a person like a savin. And the Rebbe is going to explain that through a person, when a person has tefillah, he's able to daven and ask Hashem to give him refuah and to put in the koach of refuah into his bread and into his water. And then when he eats the bread and the water, then he will be healed automatically. This is what the Rebbe is going to explain. Ki ischalkus hakochos, shezeh esev yesh lo koach l'rapos chola ploni, v'zeh chola plonis. Because the division of the powers, why one type of grass is able to heal one type of sickness and a different type of grass is able to heal a different sickness, only happens down here in this lowly world, in the physical world, or lower in the food chain that we described before, in the shefa chain. That lower down, it's divided. The source comes from one, it comes from Hashem. And from Dvar Hashem, it goes down to angels and to other ministers, until it goes down to the constellations, and from the constellations it goes down into the physical objects in this world. So this division, the main division, happens down in the lower stages, and not in the upper stages. In the upper stages, it starts off from Dvar Hashem, which is only one. Everything comes from one source. So the reason why one grass has the power to heal and the other grass doesn't
is only because of the division that it gets as it goes down through the constellations and the ministers. But up above, in the source of everything, if you go back to the source, everything was one. And probably even as it went out from the Dvar Hashem, it didn't divide up into a billion different divisions. It divided up into some major divisions, major ministers. And those major ministers, each one was in charge of its own, and it broke down slowly. But in any case, certainly if you go back to Dvar Hashem, you're going back to the source of everything. You're going back to where everything is one, and that's the source of all of the powers. And at that place, from Dvar Hashem, when Hashem gives out the koach for refuah, it doesn't make a difference if this koach is going to go into a savim, if it's going to go into bread and water, if it's going to go to the grasses or bread and water. For Hashem, when it comes to the source of the energy, of the power to heal, it doesn't make a difference to the Dvar Hashem, to the word of Hashem, whether it goes in the end, whether it ends up in a grass or whether it ends up in food. The way the nature goes is that the minister that's in charge of the grasses is going to take the healing, certain healing powers, and he's going to take that power for himself and bring it down into the certain grasses, and the constellations and other ones are going to divide each one according to its specific type of grass for a certain type of healing. Something more or less like that. It's going to be divided as the ministers and constellations see fit. But at the beginning it wasn't divided. At Dvar Hashem there was no division. And when a person can attach himself and bind himself to that shorish, and a person can daven with true tefillah, with mainly the Rebbe speaking about here, apparently chashivus, one of the main things that's necessary for this is chashivus of tefillah, to be put of the tefillah and to be machshav the importance of tefillah. The Rebbe said in a number of places, if Hashem would be, if a dead person would be able to come back to life and to daven, he would daven with a lot of kavanah, because he would recognize pashtus, he would recognize the importance of tefillah and how much it actually does. So it's just too easy for us to get used to saying the tefillahs and to not seeing its effects and not paying attention to it, and to just speak, and we don't feel. It's hard for us to feel the Hashem listening and Hashem actually being the tefillahs that we fulfilling and giving us what we ask for, and how much it actually affects the upper worlds. So a mace wouldn't have so much of that problem. He would already have experienced and see how much tefillah actually does in the upper worlds. And if we had this recognition, which we could get through Yiras Hashem, through the Shefa of Nevuah, if we work on this recognition, we get it, then we will also have proper tefillah, we'll be able to daven 100% properly, obviously with some more conditions which we're going to learn about later. And then a person can go up to the source of all the powers of the whole world, and a person will then have, like the Rebbe is about to say, then you have the ability, through your power of tefillah you've attained, through your attachment through your proper tefillah, you have the ability to draw this Dvar Hashem, the powers that are inside Dvar Hashem, down into anything in this world, even through bread and water. Even though bread and water don't naturally get the powers of refuah inside of them, when a person has the power of tefillah, he's attaching himself to the source of this power, and it's understandable that he can draw from the source of this power straight into what he's asking for, to bread and water. And then he'll be able to get refuah through bread and water, as it says in the pasuk, that Hashem will bless your bread, and then therefore through the blessing of the bread, meaning through drawing the power of refuah into the bread, then he will take away sickness from your midst, as mentioned above.